I'm cutting straight to the chase. My wife and I have been married since we were both 27. Now, at 40, it feels like a lifetime ago. We first met in college, got hitched, and everything seemed to be going perfectly. We both graduated, landed good jobs, and started our life together. Financially, we were set since we both earned well. My wife worked for her dad's small business, while I was employed at a large corporation. A few years in, my boss unexpectedly left the company, and they needed someone to step up. I was the only one who knew how to handle the department, so I got a significant raise, a better bonus, and improved benefits. By the age of 28, I was making around 3 times more than my wife. That same year, we welcomed our first daughter. 2 years later, our second arrived. Thanks to her position at her father's business, my wife had more flexibility in her work schedule. Then, about 5 years ago, my father-in-law passed away suddenly. This left my mother-in-law and wife in a tough spot, either sell the business or run it themselves. My mother-in-law had no experience in managing the company, so my wife decided to take it over. Under her leadership, the business thrived just as it had under her father. As a result, my wife received a substantial salary increase, surpassing mine. I was genuinely proud of her. Transitioning from a basic worker to running a company isn't a small feat. However, our daughters began to suffer from not seeing their parents enough. We discussed the possibility of one of us staying home, and my wife argued, "The company you work for will be fine without you. Mine could collapse." I agreed and quit my job to become a stay-at-home dad and husband. I handle everything at home, taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, fixing things, running errands, and more. I even pamper my wife when she gets home from work. For a while, this arrangement worked well. However, about a year ago, things started to change. My wife, who used to be very appreciative, became increasingly hostile. She'd make cutting remarks like, "Do you even do anything?" Or, "How about you get a real job?" I was baffled. I worked tirelessly every day to ensure she didn't have to lift a finger when she got home. Not to mention, I had a real job before I gave it up to care for the kids, our home, and her. On top of that, my wife used to be very sexual, but she stopped initiating intimacy, and whenever I tried to, she was never in the mood. I figured it was just pandemic stress affecting her, so I doubled down on trying to make her happy, but nothing seemed to work. Last weekend, my oldest had a softball game, so I got everything ready and we headed out. During the game, I wanted to record a video for my parents since they live out of state and rarely get to see the girls. I forgot my phone, so I asked my wife if I could use hers. She'd been glued to it all day, so I thought it'd be good for her to take a break. She handed it over and went off to get a drink and a snack. As I started recording, a message popped up on some app. When I checked it, I was shocked to see my wife and a younger guy from her work sexting, sending videos and pictures. They were discussing how amazing their sex was and then trash-talking me. He called me a wimp who couldn't handle a real job, and my wife agreed with him. I was utterly devastated and enraged. I heard my wife coming back, so I quickly closed the app and resumed recording. On the drive home, and even after we got back, my wife tried to talk to me, but I was not in the mood. When we went to bed, she attempted to initiate sex for the first time in a while, but I told her I wasn't interested. She responded, "If you're going to be a bitch about everything, you can sleep on the couch." I got up and moved to the couch, where I've been ever since. I'm at a loss for how to move forward. I don't even know where to begin. My wife was everything to me. My daughters are my world, and now it all feels like it's falling apart. I've been staying in the guest bedroom every night, and that's where I plan to stay for the foreseeable future. As for my decision, I've resolved to go through with the divorce. This morning, I reached out to a law firm in another town to keep things discreet. Luckily, they had an opening this morning because someone had canceled. After dropping off the girls, I headed over there. To cut a long story short, the lawyer I met with is excellent. I showed him all the evidence I had, and he told me that, given what I've got, my wife's position in the divorce is pretty dire. With me having left my job to care for our daughters, her frequent absences, and her affair, it's going to be a tough battle for her. According to him, we'll likely secure child support, alimony, and I'll keep the house, with her covering the costs as long as the girls live there. Additionally, he mentioned that we might even pursue extra financial support since I'm now considered not viable in the workforce. which could help fund further education for me. Some of you were right about this. He advised me not to take on any work until the divorce is finalized, as having a job could jeopardize some of the benefits we're seeking. He asked if I wanted full custody of the girls. I said I'm fine with my wife having occasional weekend visits, but I want primary custody. Given the affair in our marital home, he said I have a strong case. Since bringing another man into the house put our daughters at risk, it further incriminates her. I'll be pushing for full custody, with her allowed to see the girls once or twice a month. No man will be around my daughters, and if that changes, there will be consequences. I just won't tolerate that scumbag being near my girls. He advised me to keep everything under wraps until the divorce papers are ready. He said he should have everything prepared by next week. He told me to keep quiet and act normal. I know it's hard, and I'm really angry, but he stressed that I should keep my feelings to myself until the divorce is finalized. Once it's over, I can say whatever I want about her, but until then, I need to stay silent. He instructed me to avoid any conflicts, continue sleeping in separate beds, and refrain from any physical intimacy. I agreed, though I was curious about why. He said to trust him and follow his advice. I've returned home and started preparing dinner, acting as if everything is perfectly normal. I'll keep up this facade until she's officially served next week. I managed to get myself tested for STDs and also had paternity tests done for my daughters. Fortunately, my results came back clean. I am disease-free. Considering I haven't been intimate with my wife for the past year, this wasn't exactly a shock. But here's the big question everyone's probably wondering about: the paternity test for my daughters. I want to make it clear that, yes, I am their biological father. I've never been more relieved to hear that. It's a weird situation to be in, questioning something that should be certain, but there we are. As for my estranged wife, she's been kicked out of the house, and I've been granted temporary full custody. I'll go into more details later, but for now she's no longer living here. My lawyer handled everything to ensure she was legally removed from the home. It wasn't a pleasant process, but I'll share more specifics when the time is right. She was served at her workplace, and from what I hear, it wasn't pretty. Again, I'll save those details for another time. My daughters are aware of what's happening. My oldest knows about the separation and is struggling with it. One of her friends went through a similar situation, so she's seen the effects firsthand and is pleading for me to let mommy come back home. It breaks my heart to see her so distressed. I'm planning to get them into therapy to help them understand the situation, as advised by my lawyer. My youngest just misses her mom and wants her to come back. This situation makes me feel like a terrible father, and I worry that they might resent me. There are moments when I wonder if I should just ignore the cheating and keep the family together for their sake. But I can't do that. The idea of an open relationship crossed my mind, waiting until the girls are older, but I know it wouldn't work out. Besides, the girls would definitely sense the change and be hurt by it. My ex is currently staying with her mother. My mother-in-law reached out and asked to meet with me. I agreed, and we'll be meeting up soon. She didn't ask for specifics about the situation, but begged me not to cut her granddaughters out of her life. I told her she's a wonderful grandmother, and as long as she can keep the girls away from the mess between her daughter and me, I have no issue with her seeing them. I assured her I wouldn't take them away from her. She was grateful, and that's where things stand. My ex has been trying to call and text, wanting to discuss us. Under my lawyer's guidance, we've set up a way for me to communicate with her that's trackable, strictly for discussing the children. Nothing more, nothing less. I had a meeting with my mother-in-law before Thanksgiving. We sat down and had a fairly straightforward conversation, mostly about how we'd handle the girls moving forward. During our chat, my mother-in-law shared some insights about my soon-to-be ex. Apparently, my wife had been cheated on by her high school boyfriend, something I wasn't even aware she dated anyone back then. My mother-in-law described this guy as coming from one of those families and said they advised her to stay away from him. One night, my wife caught him in a compromising position with another girl, which was shocking to my mother-in-law. She had a few college boyfriends, but she never thought they'd last. When she met me, she felt I was the right match for her daughter. She expressed her regret over her daughter's actions and promised to ensure my ex wouldn't make the divorce process any harder. A couple of days before Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law invited me and the girls over for dinner. I asked if my ex would be there, and when she said yes, I declined. My mother-in-law understood but requested that we put on a holiday gathering for the sake of the girls. She suggested I consult with my lawyer about it. I did, and my lawyer advised me to let my wife know through the app that this event was solely for the kids, to avoid any mixed signals. I followed that advice despite my ex's attempts to visit us and her repeated pleas to see the girls. The girls also wanted to see their mom, so I put aside my personal feelings and agreed to go. The dinner was awkward. My ex gave the girls a hug, which was fine. But then she tried to hug and kiss me. I avoided her and went to greet my mother-in-law instead. My ex tried to act like everything was normal between us, engaging in small talk. I kept my responses brief and focused on helping my mother-in-law with dinner and cleanup. My mother-in-law, who is quite religious, wanted to say a prayer. My ex sat next to me during this, and while I held my daughter's hands, my ex reached for mine, and I pulled away. I know it might seem petty, but I just didn't want her touching me. I'm an atheist, but out of respect for my mother-in-law, I participated in the prayer. The dinner itself was fine, but my ex continued to act as though we were still a married couple, talking about Christmas and future vacations. Her attempts to include me in family plans only confirmed that coming over was a mistake. After dinner, I cleaned up the girls and my own dishes and prepared to leave. The girls wanted to watch a movie with their mom, a tradition we had, so I let them. My ex tried to cuddle next to me on the couch, but I moved to a chair instead. My mother-in-law was clearly upset with my ex for her behavior throughout the evening, as evidenced by her disapproving glances. As the evening wrapped up, the girls fell asleep, so I carried them to the car. I went back inside briefly, and my ex, in tears, grabbed me, begging to reconcile and expressing her sorrow for everything that's happened. Before I could respond, my mother-in-law intervened, physically dragging her away, wishing me good night, and starting to yell at her daughter. I reported everything to my lawyer, who assured me that nothing in my behavior indicated any intent to reconcile and that I was in the clear. My wife is still calling and pleading for us to work things out, but I'm leaving her messages unread. I will only discuss matters related to the kids. I'm considering whether to allow another holiday gathering for Christmas, and will consult with my lawyer about whether that's a good idea or not. My daughters had their first 2 therapy sessions this past week. The initial session went well. The girls seemed more at ease and calmer afterward. I spoke with the therapist and she appeared to understand my daughters and their needs very well. But the second session, wow, things went completely off the rails. In that session, the therapist explained to the girls, in a way that was appropriate for their ages, why their mother and I are separating. She told them that their mother had cheated on me, had an affair, and betrayed our family. I knew this conversation would come up eventually, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. When I picked up the girls, it was an emotional explosion. They were in tears, clinging to me, hugging me, and saying how much they loved me. I'm grateful for their love, but this wasn't how I wanted things to turn out with them. I asked the therapist why she told them. She explained that the girls were aware of the separation and had noticed the tension and lack of affection between their mother and me. She told me that they weren't oblivious to what was happening. They could see the strain. They wanted to understand why we were splitting up. The therapist said she tried to handle it delicately, but the girls wouldn't make progress in therapy if the truth wasn't revealed. She assured me that the information was presented in an age-appropriate way. Still, they now know about their mother's infidelity in a simplified form. I think my oldest might be able to cope with this information, but my youngest clearly isn't handling it well. When we got home, the girls wouldn't let go of me. They cried throughout the night, so I ordered their favorite takeout, put on their favorite movies in my bedroom, and we spent the whole night together. They eventually fell asleep, but I found myself in the bathroom, just sobbing. My soon-to-be ex doesn't seem to realize the depth of the pain she's causing our daughters. I'm not sure how to manage this. The therapist suggested we could consider medication to help them adjust to the new situation, but I refused. She supported my decision, noting that it was merely an option. She can't prescribe medication herself and mentioned that we'd need to consult their primary doctor for that, who might then diagnose the girls with something that would warrant medication. I'd rather address their emotions in a healthy way. I won't need to worry about Christmas because my daughters are currently rejecting their mother. How do I know? My oldest said she never wants to see her mom again. The youngest tends to follow her sister's lead. even if she might have her own feelings on the matter. I was taken aback by their responses. I told them they don't really hate their mom. They might be angry, but they shouldn't hate her. I tried to remind them that she loves and cares about them. My oldest insisted otherwise, cried into my arms until she fell asleep, and the youngest followed suit. I spent Christmas with the other betrayed spouse, OBS, and it turned out to be a really lovely day. Given everything that's happened, it was a surprisingly wonderful experience. I set up the girls' presents from Santa early in the morning while it was still dark. I wanted to make this Christmas special for my oldest since it's likely her last year believing in Santa. When the girls woke up, it was within minutes of sunrise, bursting with excitement about Santa's visit. I dragged myself out of bed to help them open their presents, and they were thrilled. Afterward, I put on a movie, and the girls snuggled up next to me, falling asleep almost immediately. I managed to get up and make some coffee, and when my youngest woke up saying she was hungry, I let her help me make breakfast, donning an apron and all. My oldest joined us soon after, and we all had breakfast together. They played with their new toys and had a blast, which really warmed my heart. Later, I needed to get the girls ready to visit their mother and grandmother. Normally, I'm stricter about them being punctual, but given everything going on, I've been more lenient. When they voiced their reluctance to see their mom, I reminded them that their mother loves them. The therapist had advised me to encourage their relationship with their mother for their emotional well-being. If I didn't, my wife could argue that I was isolating the girls from her in court. The therapist had also told my wife that gaining the girls' trust would require a lot of effort on her part. I told the girls not to punish their grandmother for their mother's actions and encouraged them to go see her. They agreed. The visit went smoothly. I called my mother-in-law when I arrived, and she came out to help with the girls' things since they were staying the night for Christmas. I had checked with my lawyer, and it was fine for them to stay, as long as it wasn't a frequent occurrence. I assured the girls that if they wanted to come home at any time, all they had to do was call, and I'd come pick them up. As I was leaving, my soon-to-be ex-wife walked out. I saw her exchanging some words with my mother-in-law, who gave her a stern look. My ex looked at me with tears in her eyes and waved goodbye. I drove away. Back at home, I had left some food warming in the oven for the OBS. When she arrived, she didn't have her toddler with her. She explained that her in-laws and the child's father wanted to spend time with them for Christmas, so she had made similar arrangements through her lawyer. She looked lovely in a dress, leggings, fluffy boots, and a nice wig. We had dinner and talked about our pasts, getting to know each other better. After dinner, we moved to the couch to watch a movie. We talked more, and I opened a bottle of wine. I don't drink often, but I enjoy a glass of wine on Christmas. She asked if she could have some, and I agreed after checking that she felt okay to drink. As the evening went on, our conversation shifted from our pasts and interests to our current issues and then to more lighthearted topics. With each bottle of wine, we grew more relaxed and playful. Eventually, our conversation took a more intimate turn, discussing kinks and desires. We found that we had quite a lot in common. She remarked that my wife was lucky and messed up, and I responded similarly about her husband. I know some advised me to acknowledge her appearance, but I felt it was inappropriate given the context. I did mention that she looked great without the wig, and she thanked me for the compliment. We continued talking and ended up cuddling while watching another movie. Given that we were both tipsy, things took a turn. Back when my wife and I used to cuddle, she enjoyed when I would lightly massage her breasts. Out of habit, I started doing that with the OBS. When she said it felt good, I was initially surprised but continued after she reassured me. I felt aroused and she noticed, beginning to reciprocate. We ended up engaging in intimate acts, which led to some intense, passionate sex in different rooms of the house. We eventually made our way to my bed, where we had more tender, loving sex, complete with lots of kissing. Afterward, we cuddled and cried, then fell asleep together. The next morning we had breakfast and showered. I asked if she had planned for this and she laughed, saying she always keeps an extra set of clothes for unexpected events. She then asked if I had any feelings from the night. I was honest and said yes, but we needed to focus on our kids and not let these feelings cloud our judgment. She agreed and suggested we explore our feelings further at a later time. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, thanked me for the evening, and said she'd text me later. I picked up my girls, who had enjoyed their time. They said their mom had been on her best behavior for the most part. Now I'm prepping dinner and will spend the rest of the evening with my daughters. The girls are doing much better lately. Between their therapy sessions and staying busy with activities, they seem to be adjusting well. They still have their moments, but overall, they're coping better. As for me and the other betrayed spouse OBS, we continue to talk almost daily. However, we haven't engaged in anything physical since Christmas. We did meet up once to discuss what happened, and while we both agreed that we don't regret it, we also felt it was probably a mistake. As for my soon-to-be ex-wife STBX, she continued to try to reach out to me for a few weeks after Christmas, but that has mostly stopped now. She's finally hired a lawyer, and my lawyer informed me that our meetings will be happening soon. My STBX seems to have realized that I'm serious about ending the marriage and that there's no chance of reconciliation. She still calls and texts occasionally, trying to get me to reconsider, but I haven't responded. On a more unexpected note, the OBS's ex-husband was recently arrested. Details are still emerging, but it seems he confronted my STBX at her workplace, leading to a heated verbal altercation. When she threatened to call the police, he assaulted her. The situation escalated, and co-workers had to intervene, ultimately restraining him until the authorities arrived. He was arrested, and my STBX is pressing charges. While it's unclear if he'll pursue legal action against her for their affair, nothing has been confirmed. My mother-in-law MIL informed me about the incident. She mentioned that my STBX had a black eye and a busted lip from the altercation, and though she offered that I could see her if I wanted, she also remarked that karma is a bitch. I haven't seen my wife or let the girls see her since this happened. To begin with my girls, they're not doing as well as I had hoped. They were making good progress and seemed to be improving, but as the day of the divorce approaches and they realize it's actually happening, they've started having significant issues. Their therapist explained that while they had accepted the separation, they still believed we might work things out. Now that they're facing the reality of the situation, it's hitting them hard. My youngest is managing okay, but I'm particularly concerned about my oldest. She's showing signs of depression, and it's deeply worrying. We're following the therapist's recommendations closely. Although I'm resistant to the idea, there may come a point where medication becomes necessary. I've noticed that my oldest, who's usually in good shape and healthy, has lost some weight. Her clothes are fitting more loosely, which suggests she might not be eating enough. I've talked to her doctor about discreetly adding more calories to her food to help her maintain her weight. I'm really concerned for her well-being and feel like I've failed as a father because this is not what I wanted for my daughter. I'm not religious, but if you can, please pray for my daughters. As usual, the other betrayed spouse OBS and I are still in regular contact. We're getting along well and supporting each other. However, there's been some troubling news regarding her soon-to-be ex-husband STBX. Thankfully, it doesn't involve her health or child. He has skipped town, which given his recent behavior isn't surprising. He disappeared shortly after being bailed out for assaulting my STBX. It turns out my STBX was the last person to have contact with him. My suspicions were correct. She decided not to press charges against him after he threatened to sue her for initiating the affair. He claimed she used her power over him to start the relationship. She dropped the charges, he didn't pursue legal action, and then he vanished. No one knows where he is, and his parents claim ignorance. Do I believe them? No, but there's no way to prove otherwise. As for the meeting with our lawyers, there wasn't much drama. My lawyer presented my demands, including pushing for full custody after the incident with the affair partner AP. Her lawyer seemed disinterested and kept suggesting reconciliation for the children's sake. My lawyer made it clear that was not an option, citing everything that had happened, including the issues with AP. When her lawyer persisted, my lawyer said, "Very well, we'll see you in court." 2 weeks later, my lawyer called to inform me that she had agreed to all terms, with the condition that she gets the girls 2 weekends a month and alternating holidays. She initially wanted all weekends, but my lawyer refused. I agreed to the terms because, despite everything, she's still their mother. I hope she's learned to prioritize our girls after all this. My STBX looked terrible. She's almost anorexic, appears to have aged 10 years, and even seems to be losing her hair. Even though I don't love her anymore, she's still the mother of my daughters, and it pains me to see her like this. I asked my mother-in-law ML to help her. Mil initially resisted, saying this was her punishment, but I reminded her that my STBX is still her daughter and the mother of her granddaughters. She needs to be there for them, and get the help she needs. Mill agreed and is currently working with her. My STBX left me a note requesting a final public meeting before the divorce to talk. I've agreed, and we plan to meet next week. It will be recorded and held in public. We are still technically married, but the divorce will be finalized in the first week of July. Just a few more weeks and this chapter will be closed. Now, to the part I'm sure you're interested in. My ex and I met at the park where we used to take our girls. I recorded everything, just in case. Fortunately, nothing dramatic happened. Most of our conversation was about the girls. She agreed that it was best for them to stay with me full-time during our separation, admitting she wasn't in the right mindset to be a mother right now. She said, "Clearly I have failed as a mother, and I need to learn how to be one again." We mostly discussed the logistics and details concerning the girls. As I was getting up to leave, she asked if we could stop the divorce, get counseling, and try again. I firmly said no. I reminded her of everything she did to me and our family, including how she allowed her affair partner AP to mistreat me, and even what he did to his own wife and child. I also brought up the pain she caused our girls. I asked, "Do you really think you deserve a second chance?" She said no. At this point, I was pretty fired up. I talked about how I loved her, gave up my career for her and our girls, and did everything for her. She started crying and I eventually stopped. She apologized, but I told her that sorry doesn't mean anything anymore. Then for some reason, I asked what was going through her head when she started the affair. Here's where it got interesting. She blurted out, "I wanted to be the one at home." I was confused, and then she let it all out. She never wanted to run her dad's business. She wanted me to do it. She wanted to be a mom and wife, not a business owner working 40-plus hours a week. She went on for about 30 minutes, explaining how she wanted to be the homemaker, taking care of our girls and waiting at home with meals. She admitted she never wanted to be the breadwinner or a business owner. After she finished, I asked, "Then why did you make me quit my job and say you wanted to run the business?" She responded that she wanted me to volunteer to do it because she didn't want to admit she wanted to be a stay-at-home wife. I was floored. I asked, "All of this over some stupid pride?" I was so angry. I told her I wouldn't have cared if she had just admitted she wanted to stay home. The lack of communication and her pride had led to all this mess. I then asked what all this had to do with the affair. She said that during the pandemic, when she was working long hours, she became jealous and angry that I was at home with the girls. AP picked up on that and started belittling me, saying that if I were a real man, she could stay at home. That led to the affair. She claimed she tried to end it once, but AP manipulated her by continuing to insult me and make her angry and envious, pulling her back into the affair. This cycle made her mean and nasty towards me, all because of her stupid jealousy, which could have been avoided with honest communication from the beginning. At that point, she expressed her desire to have her family back and for things to return to normal. I was devastated and angry, so I just got up and left. Since then, I've been dealing with a lot of anger and frustration. Also, I forgot to mention that late last year, she was pregnant with AP's child. She had an abortion, which her mom later revealed to me. MIL had noticed my ex acting odd and suspected she was faking sickness for attention, but it turned out she was pregnant. This revelation added another layer to her erratic behavior during that time. She mentioned she would wait for me, even if it meant forever. I told her that forever is a long time. She's back to normal, with no lasting damage, and is moving on. I heavily guilt-tripped her about the girls, asking if she was okay with them not having their mother. That seemed to snap her out of her slump. We're working more as a team for the girls now, but she still hopes for reconciliation. No chance. As for AP, he eventually tried to break into OBS's house. She had officially divorced him and took the house. Thankfully, in our state, a judge can officiate the divorce if they see fit. When AP attempted the break-in, OBS called the cops, who arrived just in time. AP tried to take their child, and when OBS resisted, he physically assaulted her. He beat her, threatened to kill her, and even tried to rape her. Thankfully, the cops arrived before that could happen and arrested him. He's now facing serious charges, especially since he was found to be drunk, high, with an illegal gun in the car and drugs. There's a good chance this evil person will never see the light of day again. I've been helping OBS a lot, along with my ex Mill. Since the incident, my ex Mile has been incredibly supportive, helping with bills, cooking, cleaning, and raising her grandchild. She treats OBS's child as another grandchild, and OBS appreciates the support. AP's parents want nothing to do with her or the child now, so it's just OBS and my ex-Mill. Thankfully, my ex-Mill, despite being strict, has a warm heart. They've kept this situation from my ex, but I'm sure she knows, as it's the talk of the town. From what I understand, she's deeply disappointed in herself and seems unable to stand it.